Hello everyone and welcome to Word on the Street, Election Edition. So, for Word on the Street, we always come together and we talk about whatever current events that's happening in the workplace, with the workforce, and I give you my take on what's going on. Well, for the Election Edition, we're bringing in people who are currently in elected positions and folks who placed their hat in the ring to say that they want to take on those elected positions to explore how they plan to lead, right? Hello everyone and thanks for joining us for this episode of Word on the Street, Election Edition. Joining us for our conversation today is Councilor Duncan Hwang. He is a counselor at Metro. Thanks for joining us, Duncan.
Thank you so much
and
for having me.
And is it okay for me to call you Duncan?
Of course.
All right, on. All right, so today we're going to be talking to Duncan about what's going on at Metro. And to begin with, share with people what Metro is.
Oh gosh, of course, yeah. Well, Metro is our regional government, so we operate kind of within the urban growth boundary here, and touch upon Multnomah, Clackamas, and Washington County.
Okay.
So kind of the urbanized area of the region, and yeah, we really are kind of the only elected kind of regional government in the country, which is cool, and I think it's part of the reason why. Historically, Portland's been a great place to live. Is we do regional coordination pretty well.
Yeah.
So Metro encompasses, I think, 27 jurisdictions.
Oh wow.
So it's like the city of Portland, all the counties, Washington, Clackamas, Washington, and also all our kind of like suburbs as well.
Mm-hmm.
So traditionally, like a government like ours would kind of work to make sure we're doing kind of regional planning together.
Yeah.
So if you're building like a transit line or something that goes from, Beaverton to Portland, someone's got to convene all the kind of local jurisdictions to get them to the table to like plan that out. So historically around the country, that's what a group like Metro would do. Mm-hmm. But locally, we've actually just added on a whole bunch of like other roles and responsibilities over the years that require kind of regional coordination.
Like what?
So we have a oversight over the urban growth boundaries. So we kind of set the borders of where the metro area are.
Okay.
And that requires all of us to work together. We have about 18,000 acres of parks and green space.
So you're in charge of parks?
Some parks and green spaces, yeah.
Okay, because I was surprised years ago when I found out that Metro was in charge of the Oregon Convention Center?
Yes, yep.
The zoo?
Yep, that's right.
There was another big one.
The
Was it
Expo.
Expo Center?
Yes, the Expo Center. Yeah.
And so I was like, I had no idea. I don't think people know what your reach is because the haulers, the folks who pick up trash for both residential and commercial, are organized or coordinated through Metro.
Yeah. So we're the regulator and participant in the waste management system of a region, and we run those venues. So the Portland 5, like the Keller, in the Schnitz, the Expo Center, Convention Center, the zoo. So kind of like the regional economic drivers.
Yeah.
And then the transportation planning, and then over the last couple of years, we've really stepped into the housing space as well.
How so?
In 2018, voters passed a bond to fund affordable housing development across the region. So that was about $652 million. From property taxes to build affordable housing.
Yeah.
And we made a promise to voters to build 3,900 units, and we're going to reach about 4,900 units. So 20% more than we promised voters.
Right, and that was in 2018 when you made that promise.
Right.
That's huge.
Yeah, but I think we've exceeded kind of a promise to our voters. But housing's more expensive nowadays. So that 4,000 some units that we're building is kind of not. It's part of the solution, but hasn't solved the challenge.
Right.
So really thinking about how do we kind of juice housing production, overall to really kind of start to move that dial on affordability. And then we also.
So are you hiring builders? Are you doing that level of detailed work?
So Metro's an interesting government. Like we don't own and operate like a lot of infrastructure, like roads, or a lot of parks. Like we have kind of like really big nature areas. But the local governments, like the cities and the counties that own and manage the roads, they're the ones that actually do kind of a lot of that implementation. So in some ways, we see ourselves as an additive to local government. Like, how do we make sure local governments are working together?
Yeah.
And then we'll also pass through funding to them. So if a region passes a measure, then we'll be like, Washington County, here's your allocation for building affordable housing, or Home Forward, here's your allocation.
Right.
You go build it. We don't own and operate it, but we kind of set the parameters of like, what are the equity goals and how should this money be spent in what kind of buckets, but then you go and do it and implement it, and we're kind of like the oversight. So I think that's kind of been the role of Metro is, making sure that we all work together as a region, and homelessness and houselessness is a great example of that, of like, there's homelessness doesn't end at the city, border.
Right.
And different parts of a region have handled it differently. Like, there are some parts of a region like Clackamas County that historically didn't do a ton of work in housing and homelessness because it wasn't their main priority. But instead of like working to shift the problem around and be like, you could just go to Portland or something and go get services. Like, we really need to take a regional approach to this regional challenge.
Right.
So that's why Metro kind of, the community asked Metro to step in and like run that ballot measure and administer the funds. We can't kind of just not work together on such a large issue, and we can't just shift the problem around to other jurisdictions and wash our hands of it. So that's Metro's kind of role is kind of how do we add value and support to kind of the local governments and making sure that they're able to accomplish the goals that they want.
And you coordinate them. You literally make sure that they are having the conversations that need to be had because the issues you focus on transcend city or county boundaries.
Yeah, like last December, earlier this year actually, we passed a regional transportation plan. So I think there's about $60 billion of future investments into our transportation system. But you got to align like the roads that Clackamas County needs, and then the interstate bridge, and you have to like work with Southwest Washington. There's just a lot of like corralling to like get everyone on the same page of like what is our regional vision for transportation. That's kind of Metro's role, is to bring folks to the table, have some hard conversations, and reach a compromise. I think folks in some parts of the suburbs feel very differently from folks in inner Southeast Portland in terms of like what their priorities are, but there's a place where we actually have to come together and make some shared understanding and investments.
Right on. So I've got so many questions based on that description, but I'm not going to jump into any of those questions because I want to know about you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Tell me about you, Duncan. Like, what's your professional background, and then what made you want to run and then win the seat of Metro Councilor?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in an immigrant family. My parents landed in Upper Michigan, and my mom opened the first Chinese restaurant in kind of the whole Upper Michigan region.
What part? I'm from Michigan, born and raised. What part of Michigan were you?
I'm a Youper, Upper Michigan.
Yeah,
Y'all
unique.
Way up there.
Right. Y'all unique people up there.
How about you? What part of Michigan?
Muskegon, Michigan. So you have to do the mitten.
Okay.
So we're right on Lake Michigan, closer to Detroit than we are to closer to Chicago than we are to Detroit.
Gosh, there are so many of us here.
There are a lot of Michiganders.
That's right.
And then they try to call us Michigonians, which is disrespectful.
That's right.
Right. I don't know what that is, but yeah.
Well, since I lived in the Upper Peninsula, I thought everyone that lived downstate was, we call them trolls.
Trolls. Yeah.
They live
I know.
under a bridge.
It's a thing.
Right. Yeah. So I grew up, up north, and I went to University of Michigan, and then I came out here to Portland for law school.
Which, Lewis Clark?
Yeah, I went to Lewis and Clark, yeah.
All right. University of Michigan person. Ann Arbor.
Right, yeah. Okay. Yeah, we had a great week. Won the national championship a couple weeks back.
Yep, that was a thing.
Pretty happy about that.
Pretty awesome. I mean, Michigan's winning in every possible way except for the Pistons. I mean, poor Pistons,
oh, gosh.
right? But the Lions.
Yeah.
Woo!
Right, yeah.
I'm a big football fan.
Oh, same.
And oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
We're going to make it to the, I'm sorry, let me bring it down to the Super Bowl.
That's right.
We're going to go. We have one more game, one more game, but we're going to be there. I feel it in my bones.
Yeah. And I'm a Blazer fan now, but like the 2004 Pistons that won that championship.
Yeah.
With, Sheed and
Ryan Wallace.
Like, that was my team.
I'm telling you. Yeah. Look, poor Pistons. And we go to the Blazer games. My children are Oregonians, and they love the Blazers. But I will never not love everything about Michigan sports.
That's right.
So.
Okay.
Sorry, we digressed.
Yeah. Okay.
So Lewis and Clark.
Yes. So I went to Lewis and Clark, and after that I Actually, I worked abroad. I lived in China, in Beijing.
Okay, for how long?
I was there about 5 years. So I worked for a big law firm in Asia, and got to work on some cool projects. I worked on the 2008 Olympic Games.
Wow. Oh,
in
what?
Beijing. Yeah. It was kind of boring. I mean, it was like all the legal work. So it was like ticket
Oh.
sale agreements and
Okay. Did you
and
get to
stuff
go
like
to the
that.
Olympics?
I did. Yeah.
Worth it.
It was fun. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I just kind of got tired because when you live in a city like Beijing, it's 23 million people, which is like
A lot of people.
5 Oregons in one city. So I really loved Portland, so I moved back and I went on idealist.org and found a job at Apano, so the Asian Pacific
You
American.
said idealist?
Idealist.org. It's like a nonprofit job board.
Okay.
Yeah. So I found a job at Apano, so the Asian Pacific American Network of Oregon. We do a lot of community development, and
Are you still working there now?
I do, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
As their chief legal officer?
I'm now our community development director.
Community development. Okay.
So I work on like economic development and housing. Just found that job on idealist.org and have been there for 11 years.
Okay.
And then I was appointed to, I did a lot of housing and transportation work at Apano, like especially in East Portland.
Yeah.
And when the seat opened up at Metro, I was kind of like recruited to, seek that appointment and got the appointment and then was elected to office. So just being able to bring kind of my experience in housing and transportation to Metro and, having kind of that community connection has been really valuable. Just because I think, I live and work along 82nd Avenue, and that's a big focus area for us right now. So just having kind of that lived experience, has been really valuable to bring to Metro.
So why did you want the counselor gig at Metro? Like, you could have been anything in the world. Like, why Metro? Because I asked that question mostly because Metro's pretty opaque when it comes to like understanding, like looking behind the veil of what they do.
Yeah.
Right? You'll see the county is in the newspaper, TriMet's in the newspaper, the city of Portland, like all the cities, all the counties, the busing system, the transit system. People are kind of asking questions about what it is that they do and how it is that they're doing it and how it is that they're serving the community. But Metro is seldom ever in the newspaper. I mean, you are now for that new tax. We're going to talk about it in a minute.
Yeah.
But it's very seldom that people are asking questions about Metro, even though a lot of money flows through Metro.
Yeah.
And so why did you choose to want to be a counselor at Metro, of all places?
Yeah, I mean, I think, traditionally Metro really worked on long-term planning. And, I think having a sense of like, what is the future of our region and working kind of like on a longer horizon.
Yeah.
So I think, that was interesting to me to be like kind of like thinking ahead 10 to 20 to 30 years.
Yeah.
And at Metro, historically, we haven't had to respond to people being like, there's a pothole in front of my street. Right. So yeah, I think that part was attractive of like, how do we think big picture? How do we coordinate and have hard conversations all across the region, but not also have to deal with the things that are very immediate all the time.
Yes.
Like, there's a pothole here, or, we just had an ice storm and, it's all hands on deck sort of thing. Like, we just don't offer those kinds of services. So, so I think it's maybe like being able to help shape kind of like where we're headed in the future, but not like be bogged down in the day-to-day immediate stuff.
Right, because it's hard to look up when you're looking literally at filling the pothole today.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And the calls are coming in from the community about emergent resources needed today, tomorrow.
Right. So I think that was, I don't know if it's like, every bureaucracy and every government plays different roles, and that's just not our role at Metro historically.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like, but
I mean, it has to be. How long have you been a counselor?
I started in 2020.
2020, so 4 years in.
2021, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
2021?
Yes. So I actually was initially appointed because my predecessor had to step down for health reasons.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wait, the ballot was, got it. I'm tracking.
Yeah.
So let's talk about taxes.
Sure. Well, yeah.
Lots and lots of taxes flow through Metro.
Yeah.
And what do y'all do with this money? What does Metro do with the tax money that you all procure?
Yeah. Well, I think just on your previous question,
Yeah.
a lot of times Metro is kind of under the radar because if things are working, then it's not very hype. Like if your trash is picked up, if you have a park to go to, if the bus comes to a place that you want to go, then generally Metro had some influence on that, but not unless something goes catastrophic is Metro kind of in the press as much. But I think over the last couple of years, our role has kind of expanded with that 2018 housing bond and then the SHS measure that was passed a couple of years after that. So now we're starting to get calls more. That's people go to the city and then the county, if they don't get what they want, they'll come to Metro. So I think the place in the public realm has kind of grown a bit more over the last couple of years with the new measures. But a lot of times, what we do with those taxes is we will collect them and then redistribute them, right? So for the affordable housing measure, we're on track to build those 4,700 units, but Metro's not building them.
Right.
Developers are building them through the Portland Housing Bureau or Home Forward or Washington County or Clackamas County.
And you route the money, the Metro money, through those governmental entities to the folks who are doing the actual development.
Right.
Okay.
So, it's kind of like our region said that we want to tackle affordable housing.
Yes.
And it's not just Washington County, it's not just Multnomah County. So the region needs to work together on this. So we collect the $650 million, and then by kind of share of population and tax revenue, then here is your block of money that the region collected, but these are from your taxpayers. Here are kind of the goals that we want to set as a region. Now you go and build, you hire or distribute that to the developers to build that housing.
Yeah.
I think we kind of serve a compile money, oversight, and then accountability.
So tell me about the accountability piece, right?
Yes.
Because we're going to pivot into the newest homelessness tax.
Yeah.
So Metro's in charge of the money. You receive the money from the taxpayers.
That's right.
And then you distribute it to make sure that each county or city or whatever municipality there is out there gets their fair share, right? Their portion of the funds that came through. But what if the outcomes don't follow? So you were just talking about how you exceeded the housing goal that was set, and the commitments that were made to the voters that then gave you the money, and you're like, we're nailing it. We're 20% above where we're supposed to be for
on
our
that
housing
measure. Yes.
On that particular measure.
Yes.
But what if you were 30% below?
Yeah.
What would Metro do? Would you take it back? Would you? What happens under those circumstances?
Well, I think the most recent example is with the supportive housing measure. This is what's paying for social services for folks that are unhoused, right?
Yes.
And that was based on the high income earners tax. 1% over $200,000 for a married couple, or I think 1% over $500,000 for a business.
Yes.
So we collect that money, and that's also kind of redistributed mainly to the counties for social services. So the 3 counties get them. And then what happened was we actually generated a lot more revenue than initially projected, because the last couple of years, folks that are higher income have made more money.
Can we say kicker? No, we'll get there. Can I say kicker?
You can say kicker.
No, Duncan, we can talk about it.
No, we'll talk about it for sure.
Okay, you were saying.
Yeah, so we're now 3 years into that measure, so it's a 10-year measure. And, I think we are starting to see an accelerating pace of progress. But I think, we obviously still have, houseless folks, encampments and things like that. So I think there's kind of a lag time between kind of the results that we want to see and also, the money that's coming in.
So, but what does Metro then do about it?
Right. So Multnomah County, for example, wasn't spending all their money quickly enough. So we were able to put them onto a corrective action plan.
Oh, you're speaking my HR language.
Yeah.
You gave them a correction action plan?
Yeah.
So what does that entail? What does that look like?
It was just basically, you need to have a plan and tell us how you will spend these dollars by, X date.
And if you don't? Do you have sticks or carrots? And if you don't hit these goals, these metrics, or these outcomes?
We have both, but like, so look, this is a new measure from 2 years ago. So we're a couple years in, and we are trying to address one of the most difficult things to address in our society,
Right.
the houselessness crisis. And we're all starting at different places, right? Like some counties didn't really have much infrastructure. So when they're like, here's like tens of millions of dollars, they're like, oh, what do we do with all this money? So, like we are working in a world where there's been, decades of underinvestment in our social safety net, right?
Right.
So we can't flip a switch and fix it. So, we have to implement all the kind of processes, all the data collection, and a lot of times we work with nonprofits to provide social services to folks who are houseless. But what if those nonprofits don't exist, right? Because it's like the ecosystem before could never really pay for such a large system because the dollars weren't there. So there's only a couple nonprofits doing this work, and a lot of them were based in Portland. So like, what do you do in Washington and Clackamas County? So there's like this ramp up time where you need to build up a lot of systems to be able to work on this. So it's like, we're not seeing immediate results, but I think we're starting to see more and more results as these systems come online and that ecosystem is built out. And folks want to go to our Metro website. It's oregon.metro.gov, and we have a page on kind of like the progress that we're making. So as of September of last year, we were able to place 5,776 people into housing. 18,149 people were prevented from reaching homelessness through eviction prevention. And then we've created 1,700 new shelter beds. So that's what the counties are doing. And this is just from last September. So yeah.
How much money did Metro bring in? I mean, you said you all got more money than you thought you were going to get for this.
Yeah, we invested about $250 million a year.
So we got $250 million.
But I think we're up to maybe like, I don't know the exact number, but probably around 300 some million.
So we're near $300 million.
Yeah.
And you said 17,000 folks, or 1,700 shelter beds. Tell me the numbers again.
1,700 shelter beds. 18,000 eviction preventions,
18,000.
and 5,776 people placed into housing.
Yeah. And next year you'll get another $250 million.
Probably more than that, but yes.
Probably more.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
There's a lot of money.
For 5,000, 1,700, and the other number that you...
17 or 18,000 eviction preventions.
18,000 preventions.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the thing, right? Like, and this is never really a, argument or selling point.
Yeah.
But like, without this measure, things could be much worse. Like, we prevented 18,000 evictions, but I mean, that's folks that are not, out in the street, but you don't feel it.
Look,
like,
the work is really important, but what we're saying is like the price point associated with it. So the reason why I really wanted to talk to you, Councilor Hwang,
Duncan.
right? I got to get formal. Is because what I'm trying to understand, like Metro has what, 1,100 employees, I think is what you said, near a little over 1,000 employees. You got hundreds of millions of dollars moving through Metro every year.
That's
hundreds of, probably close to $1 billion. I'm not even sure how much. I mean, if this was $300 million for 1 year for one measure, right? Then I can only imagine what the housing measure looks like, and I mean, there's so many the infrastructure that.
Our annual revenue, our budget is about $1.8 billion.
1.8 billion.
Yeah, so that that is the zoo, convention center,
all in.
That. Yeah, all that.
So $2 billion routed through y'all.
But a lot of folks get resources through us.
Right.
So it's not
It's not your money.
Yeah, it's
per
just,
se.
it's all taxpayer money.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on. Nice catch.
Right.
But you are holding people accountable to utilizing and activating on nearly $2 billion year over year to make sure that we're coordinated, to make sure that the community is being served in a way that we can feel that makes a difference in the lives of the voters, right?
That'd be a good description for a mission.
Right on.
Yeah.
And I can't help but just kind of wonder, the homelessness thing,
Yeah.
the houselessness thing
Right.
is a pretty significant challenge. And I think this is
Oh,
the first time that
for
people
sure, yeah.
are really
I mean,
paying attention to Metro in a major way. Like,
Yeah.
whoa, Metro because we were surprised
Yeah.
when I say we, Workplace Change is a business, right?
Yeah.
We're one of the businesses
Right.
that, what's the threshold? The minimum is $500,000
Yep.
for a business. So we were over $500,000. That's a blessing to us.
Yeah.
It's a privilege to us. And we pay taxes and for a building
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
for staff and benefits, and we have
Yes.
full-time employees. So when we got hit with that tax
Yeah.
in a very unprepared manner last year,
Yeah.
it kind of rocked us at our core of like, okay, that's
Yeah.
another staff person we can't hire here.
Right.
And so it's like, okay, it's homelessness. I voted for the tax. I didn't know it was going to land like that. Fine print, process it. It's my fault. It's my fault. But I am wondering, impact,
Yeah.
accountability.
Right.
Like a year in, we still are seeing the mass encampments. A
Yeah.
year in, we still do have the trailer areas, that
Yeah.
are just like blocking roadways and kind of
Sure,
doing
yeah.
whack-a-mole, where folks are popping up in different areas and we're not solving for the challenge or the problem that these people are experiencing that's got them living in a very inhumane manner on the street.
Yeah.
And I just want to know, as a counselor, like, how do you all lead the Metro workforce towards holding the partners that you have accountable towards actually getting the outcomes that the taxpayers
Yeah.
really are begging to see?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's the $1 million question.
No, that's the billion.
That's the
It's a $250 million at least.
No, it's definitely the $1 million question. So, look, I would say, we're working on this sort of a corrective action plan. And I think a lot of it is how do we get the city and county, especially in Portland, to be more closely aligned. I think the recourse that we have structurally in this measure is like, look, let's say you're not performing up to standards. Like normally you would get fired or something like that.
That
right?
happens.
That happens, but like that's not an option we have. Like we can't fire our county partners because
Right.
that's the county and they do this thing.
Yeah.
And also, we can't necessarily withhold money as the solution. When the problem is you're not spending fast enough, taking your money back from them doesn't really solve the problem.
But couldn't you take it back and give it to someone who was ready to go?
Yes.
Who was ready to?
And I think that's what we're talking about. So, I think the 2018 measure for building affordable housing is, we basically spent all the money and the housing is being built.
And we got it.
And we got it.
20% above
Right.
forecast. I
Right.
like those kinds of numbers.
Right. And, I think what we're thinking about for this year is if the counties aren't spending it fast enough, what do we do with that?
Yeah.
And our one option that we're exploring is like, you know what, let's not go back to voters and increase taxes. Let's just take that money and use the extra to build affordable housing and kind of,
Hey!
do both of one.
And you got an infrastructure that's clearly working.
Exactly, yeah. So I think, that's really kind of been my
Yes.
what I've learned in the last couple of years as Metro is like we got resources. You were saying we're a high tax jurisdiction. We just got to be more effective with the money that we got and honestly just do more with it.
Right.
So a lot of options are being explored with SHS. But what if I told you there was a world where we could reduce taxes, build housing, and fund services? That sounds pretty good, right?
That sounds like
Yeah.
what everybody on the planet wants.
Exactly. So I think, with the supportive housing dollars, I think we're exploring, there's a lot of options on the table, but one option would be like, we'll take the extra, we'll build the housing with it, and then we'll also peg it to maybe inflation or something so that tax actually reduces over time.
Yeah.
So I think that.
But the tax is only for 10 years, and then it expires, and then voters would have to re-up.
Right, but we might ask the voters, what do you think of kicking up a little bit and then bonding against that?
Okay.
And then we'll reduce taxes. So there's a lot of conversations to have with our constituents and our voters. But that's one potential pathway, right?
Yeah.
Is like, let's be smart about what money we got. We can actually do two things at once.
Right.
And also maybe look at how that tax is distributed. And then, I think my big thing at council was like, I hear our business owners. Like, people are not getting the value that they think they're paying for taxes.
Right.
Fine, yeah, that's true. But like, how do we then be more effective with the resources that we got? And then, how are we like fair about that collection? So I was really big on, when the first year of best measure. I don't think we did a good job of letting the public know, and people were surprised.
Right.
So we actually just forgave all the penalties and fees associated with that to give people more time to like learn and adjust. So I think we're hoping and trying to be as responsive to the public as possible, trying to get the most for our buck, and trying to push our county partners along, and also just being creative with the dollars that we have. Like, what if we can do multiple things with it? So yeah, like.
So Duncan, Metro, people call Metro, playfully call it the convening, right? Like the convening.
Sure, I think that is our. That's
You bring people together, right?
Yeah.
You coordinate.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I know that both high tax payers express and people who receive resources express consistently is that it feels like we are not coordinated. Like it feels like if you talk to people who, and I grew up very low income. I grew up on subsidized housing. I grew up on, welfare with food stamps. I grew up with all of those challenges. And so the number one thing you think about as a person who is low income is, if I had more money, we could solve all these problems, right?
Yeah.
If I have more money, I don't have to worry about do I pay my light bill or my gas bill. I don't have to worry about, do I buy chicken or can we only afford, the noodle packet. The question that I have for you all is that if the money is there, we've already paid into the till to get this off the ground. What is the problem for solving these very complicated, integrated challenges? I mean, people would normally say we haven't invested in it. We don't have the money. But we do have the money. We got more money than we ever expected to have, and yet the organization isn't there to pull it off. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely part of the challenge. I mean, I think, root cause structurally is like our governments from, the federal level on down has historically disinvested in our social safety net, right? And, like a lot of those benefits, aren't there at the level they used to be.
Right.
And they're also very siloed. So it's like, if you want the Oregon Trail card, you have to do this thing. And, it's just like all these different agencies and levels of government work differently. Very differently.
And so for a low-income person having to navigate that is complicated.
Exactly. Right.
As a taxpayer having to pay into that is frustrating.
Yeah.
Like the user and the contributor are both frustrated.
Right.
And you're the convening entity.
Well, we're a convening entity for this region.
Right.
But I think a lot of the challenges are also at the federal level, right? Where, HUD doesn't want to do it this way, or, just like there's that benefits cliff that you're talking about, and a lot of that's like kind of it's done at the federal level. So I think at Metro we're convening and pulling together I would say stakeholders that have influence locally, but there's also like but people senators from Alabama that think differently, and they impact how things are done in the entire country. So I think it's just like we have this like network of governments at all levels that just
where it's challenging.
But
you got $1.8 billion.
Yeah, but I mean a lot of that is apportioned to our various different functions. I would not say that like I don't think any government right now has their coffers overflowing.
Right.
Like it's a tough time because of costs for everybody.
Yeah.
And we get that. But I think the way that we've structured our tax system here locally is, like we don't have a sales tax, so that's one of the stools of government funding that we don't have. So we have high income taxes, high property taxes, and we have all these like individual taxes, like
miscellaneous taxes,
like
on
preschool
top
for all, supportive housing, and it's just like
and they hit at the same time.
Right.
The houselessness tax that Metro had and the county's preschool for all hit at the exact same time.
Right.
Really unexpectedly for business.
Yeah, absolutely. So so we have all these like individual taxes, like single purpose taxes that go to this one thing, and then they generate more money than you think because it's like a high income earners tax or business, like a sales tax basically in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So I think we have a real need for some tax reform and maybe like a new tax deal in a lot of ways for our state and region, because
Right on.
we're kind of unbalanced, right?
We
It's
are
like,
unbalanced.
we can't pay for basic road maintenance, but we have a ton of money right now in this particular world.
particular pot.
And it's like, we can't spend that fast enough, but how do we, like the Keller Auditorium needed a new cooling center, right? It's like, well, we don't have money for that, but we got all this money for this.
Right.
So yeah, that's just been something I've been learning about, is like how our tax system is set up and how frustrating it is.
Yeah.
Because we have real needs over here, but also a surplus here, and like you can't really redistribute it because that's not what the voters voted to do.
It was tethered to that particular initiative.
Yeah, so I think a big picture conversation is just like, how do we reform that system? And honestly, like, because we don't have a sales tax, for example, we don't really collect any revenue from tourists that come here and shop and eat, and they're here to spend money, and we're not collecting any of that money, right?
Yeah.
So
the voters will never. I mean, how many times have we put that on the ballot?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
what's really interesting is that, and this is just my perception as a person who grew up very low income, and as a person who has people in my family who are still, receiving services because they need subsidies. In Oregon, driving high earners out is not good for the state when we have no sales tax to balance us out.
Yeah.
And so the lack of the coordination, the new taxes, the miscellaneous on top of, with the second highest property taxes, and there's some serious tax burdens here.
Yeah.
It is something that we really do need to explore and think about, because
Absolutely.
I shudder to think how we fare as a state if
Yeah.
we continue to, and we are losing high earners from living here, or business owners who are relocating their, like all of these things, we really do need to take it into consideration.
Yes. And I share your concern.
Really do.
Absolutely.
I am truly concerned.
Yeah. Before I came into, the public sector and the nonprofit sector, I worked in corporate law.
Right.
So I'm very familiar with tax jurisdictions all over, and I think I think we're reaching that moment where, like we have a tax moratorium kind of on new taxes from the downtown task force and the governor, and that's kind of new for our region. Like we used to support almost every tax. But I think like that mentality has shifted
because people are leaving.
Right, I think
people are leaving, and they're communicating that they're looking to leave, and now it's reactionary, right? Let's not wait for the consequence to come to us to think about doing things in a way that doesn't overburden, or that isn't coordinated to begin with, that's not planned out to begin with, right? We're just saying more money on these very specific things, when globally we probably need to just kind of go 30,000 feet up and think about how are we doing this entire thing, which is what you just
gotta
said.
figure it out. There you go.
You gotta figure it out.
Yeah. So I think we're coming that head now, where it's like
convener, Metro.
Like, we gotta have these conversations.
Bring some smart people together and get the. Hey, it's above my pay grade. I'm people and culture all day. That's what we do. But I know that Metro is leading a workforce of some of the brightest minds the nation has available, with some of the brightest and best ideas that the world has available. And my question is, how are we leveraging that talent? How are we activating on those big old brains in there to really stop the harm from happening to the lower income folks, or the folks experiencing homelessness, because they don't know how to get these resources. I watch KGW, right? I see them go to these trailer areas, and they're saying like, hey, there's a new place where you can be, or this thing is available. And they're like, we didn't know about that. How would we know about that, right? Like, we didn't get it sent to us in the mail, clearly. And so there's a bit of sarcasm and cynicism there, but really what they're saying is that we want help. We don't know how to get help, where to get help, and we're sitting over here on $250 million that we can't get out the door fast enough to solve these problems. Why? The question is why for me.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it is in the implementation. It's at the county levels, and I think when you talk with county commissioners, it'd be a great question for them and how they're approaching it. As a funder, we can push and push and push, but someone's still got to do it, right? And I think just for me at Metro, I think there's a culture change happening. We do have some of the best minds in the whole country working on this, but before 2018, we didn't really work in housing, right? So Metro was really focused on long-term planning. So we have a really smart group of people that are perfectionists, that want to get everything right in 2040 or 2060.
Right.
So that there's this culture shift happening right now where it's like, oh, actually we are working in this housing and responding to the houselessness crisis.
Right.
So we're doing that now. So we all got to shift our mindset where it's like, you don't have to get things perfect in 2060.
Right.
That was the old mindset. We got to do some stuff right now.
Or it's a team that's focused on 2060 and there's a team that's focused on 2024.
Right. Yeah, but I think that's that culture shift where it's like, you know, we are in the press more now. There are more eyes.
Oh yeah. For the first time, I've been 16 years.
Yeah.
You've probably been in the press more over the past 2 years than I've seen you in the press 16 years combined.
Right. Yeah, because you know, if your waste was picked up and the zoo was open, people didn't care.
We were fine.
But now it's different, and I think that's just a culture shift for the whole agency. And it's like, you know, my thing is like, look, we're working on this. We gotta like take some bold steps. You gotta try some stuff. Be innovative. If it doesn't work, that's fine. Hey, we tried.
Yeah.
And that failure is on me, as you know, on the political level.
Yeah.
And it's not on you, but like I would rather you come up with big ideas, work together with this region, and try some stuff to like address this crisis, and rather than getting it perfect the first time around.
I love the idea of reallocating the money to the place where you are getting great success. Right. In housing, building, and development. Let's keep doing it. It should directly impact houselessness. So, last question for you, Duncan.
Okay.
And hey, thank you for spending some time with us. This has been great.
Great. Yeah, thanks for having me.
You came into office 2021, and it was an appointment, correct? Mm-hmm. But now you got to be on the ballot this coming election year, 2024 November. Are you going to be running?
Yeah, I'm filed. I'm running for reelection. I got a lot of unfinished work to do.
Right on.
So yeah, of course, you know, working on all the housing issues, and I'm really excited to be co-chairing kind of the 82nd Avenue Planning Committee for a new transit line. That'll connect kind of North Portland with Clackamas. So yeah, we got some really exciting projects up at the zoo and Expo Center and all that I am really excited for seeing through. And also just I'm really inspired by a lot of our community visions that our partners have. So Albina Vision Trust or the OMSI District, Willamette Cove. I'm really excited for the east side of the river, where we got a lot of exciting projects that Metro is investing in with our community partners. So just a lot of excitement generally, and I know we really got to make progress on using these tax dollars wisely, convening folks, really addressing kind of the homelessness issue at a deeper level. But yeah, I'm also excited for the future of our region. We got a lot of big ideas bubbling up, and I think it's a new day in Portland in a lot of ways. So I don't know, I guess I'm a glass half full kind of person.
I like it. I like your glass being half full.
Okay, great.
Well, I'm going to leave the last word there with Councilor Hwang. I want to thank you all for watching Word on the Street Election Edition. And if you've got questions, we'll get those questions over to Councilor Hwang, and we'll get you some responses back, we promise. And if I missed something, let me know. The conversation's not over. We're just getting started. So thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.